of just a few of the key Breeders' Cup prep races that are going to be happening this weekend. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornitel. Very happy to be joined by Race Lens power user Matt Vagvolgyi. Matt, how are things?
Doing great, Pete. I feel like it's been a while since we've chatted horses. I know we saw each other over the summer at Saratoga, but it's good to be.
Not enough. In fact, we gotta get our schedules more aligned. I felt like we were misaligned for our Saratoga summers, but it was good getting a chance to hang out. And the good news is we're going to be able to hang out a lot more because we're doing this special program with our friends at Race Lens, and there's a couple of elements to it. And we'll start off with we're going to be doing a couple of what you'd call, I don't know, maybe fairly standard seminars where we're going to be talking about races ahead of this weekend, ahead of next weekend. But then we're going to be doing a whole special series after the Breeders' Cup where we dive deep into what I'm going to call fundamental racing questions or accepted racing wisdom. I want to actually use Race Lens, and you can speak to how you can do this through the various queries, but I want to use this program to be able to examine ideas like, are first-time starters at a disadvantage when they break from the inside? How powerful is a bullet workout in the PPs, to talk about an angle we were just discussing on another show? How big of a drop is maiden special weight to maiden claimer? Is turf to dirt a positive, a negative? All these kind of things. The effect of blinkers. Some of this stuff is obviously going to be trainer specific, and you have to look at it in that context. But I do believe there are some things you hear at the track all the time that are things that people say just because they say them, and they've not necessarily ever looked at the data. And the idea of this upcoming to-be-named series will be to, check out some of that stuff, for lack of a better word, to interrogate those questions.
Yeah, I think that's how I've gotten into using Race Lens so much, is testing some of these theories, right? Trying to put some of the data behind what you hear at the track, what people tell you, the always do this or never bet this. Yes. And, in my line of work, what I do for a living, it's my job to be to play devil's advocate all the time. So that's kind of how I've gotten interested into this. And to be honest with you, it's helped me be a better horse player. Help me be a better advantage player overall, I would say, when you look, again, just using data to drive all of your opinions, but to use it as part of the process. I have like a portfolio view of, the qualitative stuff, the handicapping, the watching races, to then the quantitative side of it is using basically, machine learning algorithms to help you get statistics and help you find opportunities to then use that qualitative brain power to look at it deeper. So I think it helps you organize a bit better, but it also, again, I do enjoy this. So it's that I love going down rat holes with and something I'm wanting to do. So looking forward to seeing the questions that come in and different ideas that come in to take a look at and research.
And that's the thing I want to put out there is we want to crowdsource this. We want to know what you want to know. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we'll be able to get to a sampling. Now, it's going to be tempting just to pop them in the comments here. I'll tell you right now, if you do that, they're probably going to get lost. The best way to get us stuff that we can put as part of our series upcoming for our friends at Race Lens, send me an email. And the best way to do that is through the contact page over at inthemoneypodcast.com. That goes directly to my personal email. I'll keep a file, and we're going to use your thoughts and our thoughts, and we're going to try to come up with something cool. The other key thing we have to get to, Matt, before we start talking about these races today, is this new promo. We've got a pretty link. You can check this out on inthemoneypodcast.com/Race Lens. This is a chance to save $300 on a Race Lens subscription. And another way of looking at it is you're saving $500 because you'll also get with it a 1-year subscription to In the Money Plus. In the Money Plus, a concept that Matt, you had something to do with the origin of. I remember a particular brainstorming conversation in the basement of Walton Whitman Brewery in Saratoga, which is still up there going strong. And with doing this for a year, even if you're a more casual Breeders' Cup and Triple Crown player, you'll get our full Breeders' Cup package with a ton of extra info. You'll get our full Kentucky Derby package, and you're going to have the opportunity to get all the stuff you get during the week. Extra shows, there'll probably be an Extra Plus show for Arc de Triomphe Day, or a lot of the special days that come up. We do extra stuff there, and you get digests of all the picks, and then a lot of other great info, like the diaries that Eric DeCoster did for Kentucky Downs that were so popular. Frank Scottoni crushed it for Del Mar. You get all of this included for this investment, and a chance to get Racelands Unlimited for a year. And I know, Matt, we've talked before about how making the commitment to it makes sense, because there is a little bit of a learning curve. It takes you a minute to get up and running. That's another part of the series we're going to do, is try to not so much today demo the product, but in some of these future shows, demo the product a little bit so people can get up to speed on it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I really would like to do, because I took on this fresh and it took me a while to get an idea of really how to use it. It's one of those things where it's like a cool shiny toy, and then you realize I have no idea how to turn it on, right? So I kind of felt like that a little bit, and then once I got used to it, and that to the point where I am now, where I rely on a lot of this, a lot of data, a lot of angles I've created, kind of create of plays. So my hope is I can fast forward that very quickly, right, to show the ease of how to build basically your modeling without having any background in modeling, right? So if you have no background in creating this yourself, it doesn't matter. It's literally a few clicks, and basically the universe of everything that's captured in and on those Equibase sheets is something you can dissect, look at even more too. There's more things that get added to it, but I want to help kind of go through that and see how that can help your overall horseplay.
There's other resources too. We'll be doing these shows. The series we describe will be evergreen. You can go back, find a lot of content, but you can also reach right out to the team over there, and potentially, if you're committing at the annual level, I'm pretty sure you could get a tutorial session with one of the key members of the team over there as well. So there's a lot of stuff we can help provide. If you have questions about the product, you can reach out there as well. Let's get to the races, and we're going to by doing that, we're going to share Matt's screen here so you get a sense of, we're talking about Racelands as a modeling tool. It's also a fairly advanced past performance tool as well. And what are the reasons why, Matt, we're first looking at the Vosberg? Why did you pick this race?
Well, I mean, I like looking at I'm kind of catching the Breeders' Cup fever a bit, after Saratoga was over. I'm not going to lie, I kind of had this vision of like that message pops up, would you like to delete Saratoga 2023? And I clicked yes, like immediately. So, it certainly wasn't the best year at Saratoga. You start to get removed, you start to realize that, Breeders' Cup is right around the corner. So, getting excited for these races. And, if you're on before with JK, I think he makes a great point of getting involved in these preps, having opinions going in, dissecting the results afterwards kind of helps shape what your feelings are going to be when you go into Breeders' Cup. Like some of my best Breeders' Cups betting wise have been when I've gone into the Breeders' Cup saying, I know exactly what I'm doing here, right? I know exactly what I'm doing here. Nothing's really going to change kind of how I feel about it because I work leading up to it. Now, again, not to get locked in on an idea, but I think it's important, especially when you look at Breeders' Cup. So, so looking at some of these, some of these races here, the ends and yeah, like what you're looking at on the screen, this is going to just a very basic idea of what the past performances look like. It's very data driven. I'll be honest with you. I use different sources of past performances. Some are just visual, easier to see the race and surface, kind of like a time form type idea. But when I have this on, another screen, that it just has so much data at fingertips, right? And I like to look at in terms of trainer stats when you're looking at jockey, you're looking at pace projections as well. I think that's something that's incredible in this product as a whole, is looking at the early and middle pace figures and how that shapes up a race. So there's a lot of information here, but I think it helps you give a really good idea as to how this horse shapes up on a connection standpoint, but also how this horse has performed in his prior races.
So I think the big question when anybody looks at this race, you got to start with Codys Wish on the turn back to the 7 furlongs. And, if you feel like scrolling down to his PP cut, if that's easy, Matt, while we chat, not that he needs much of an introduction, but it's just kind of interesting to see. You got to start off. You talked about the pace. That's not something that is going to be in his favor in the spot. You would not think, but we've also seen him at these shorter distances overcome that without any issue at all. I was guessing when I asked you that question of why did you pick the Vosberg, I was wondering if part of the reason wasn't that you felt like there was some evidence that maybe we could try to take on Codys Wish, who will probably be something on the order of 1 to 5 in this spot.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big reason. I feel I should pay a fine for picking against Codys Wish here, but it kind of plays into, and yeah, right. I totally agree with that. So I'd find myself for it. But again, it kind of plays into how I use this platform and how it's been helpful is being able to pace and how different horses have run in certain situations. Also profiling jockeys on certain horses where they run their best, whether it's, on the pace or off the pace, etc. You can really look at any of that stuff, right? So that's kind of what draws me to a race like this, because I do feel that Codys Wish will be a little bit pace compromised. And I think, again, not comparing what you just watched, if you were on Horse Player Happy Hour, watching the last race that you showed there, I mean, at probably 3/4 of that race, you probably thought that race going to fall apart, right? When you're on the dirt, again, it's been extremely difficult, even dirt routes as well. You've got to be up on the pace, right? So that's kind of how I formulated coming into this idea here of looking at an alternative. And, that's where I did look at a creative, I think should be on the lead. Again, I have my own pace projector. You look at, Timeform, even Racelens has their own pace projection, which I can show you as well. I think this horse will either be on a lone lead. The only other horse that I see is that the one may have to. I don't have a lot of
from
concern
the rail.
there.
You'd think the one would go. Then the question becomes: will Great Navigator be fast enough to keep up with a creative? Timeform seems to think it's conceivable, and Racelens. I don't think anybody at Racelens would be offended by that notion you mentioned before. It's a product. It can be a one and done standalone, but I really like to use it in conjunction with the other stuff, as you hear me talk about all the time on our airwaves.
Yeah, no question about it. Again, you're looking for, I always say the best way to create a genius is ask a bunch of people the same question. So the same idea when you're using different sources of information to see if there's any consistency, if there's any differences. If there are, you can see why that difference is there and then make your own decision, right? Again, it goes from the quantitative to the qualitative side where you're ultimately making that decision based on the information that you have. But again, I think that, either on a clear lead or soft pressure leads into this idea where, again, I agree with these projected pace rankings of being the top early and middle pace, going to have to hold on for dear life in the lane. But this track has been proving to hold on to speed late, right? Now you got a Codys Wish in the race, right? So that can certainly be overcome. But when you look at it, something like this, that gets me interested in looking at an alternative. And again, just not going through showing the specific angles, but I'll give you kind of the numbers behind that. If you look at dirt sprints here at Aqueduct for the season so far, I mean, 29% winners, horses that hit the lead at the first call, 50% in the money and a positive 36% ROI. So the numbers are supporting that notion of getting to, and then odds on favorites either, right? As we saw in that race we just showed there. So it's a good example.
Both of the last races in Aqueduct today looked like exactly the profile you're talking about. They were some longer prices that held on. I mean, my first thought, JK kind of dismissed it, but what does he know? He said it's the universal bias. It looked more than that to me, but that's just one guy watching two races. That could easily be wrong when you can back it up with data. And I love what you're saying there, because it's to me, the percentage is notable, but what's really notable is those ROIs, because that tells you that you're looking at horses at prices coming in there. And it's a nice shortcut for watching every piece of tape and going through every chart multiple. I mean, it's just the amount of time you can save with a product like this to take that hypothesis and turn it into something that you're confident has signal. That's significant.
Yeah, I think you make a great example of what you just said, right? This is kind of how I got interested in this platform when it first launched. Was I'm watching races, I'm noticing something, and I'm asking myself, well, I wonder if there's pretty extreme bias to the front end dirt sprints, right? Or it could be something that I automatically would take of like, well, I'm just going to bet everything on the front end. when you go back and actually look at a larger subset of data, right? Look at the recency, and then you look at it over time. Sometimes it tells you a different story. Sometimes it's not as big as you think, or you know what? It has stood the test of time over time. So yeah, maybe there's something there. And then you start to drill down even further. Like, what jockeys can I rely on with the right horse to get to the lead, right? That execute that running for a particular horse. So then you can run that. You can run that model
tools within the program. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you do that, you analyze by jockey essentially. Like, is that how you would do that?
You could do it by jockey. You could do it by trainer. I mean, there's so many different things that you can look at. You can look at the run style of the horse. So, if you want to bring in the modern pace handicapping, I've read that book probably 5 times, and looks like one of my old econometrics books of highlights and underlines and folded pages. But it brings those running styles into the actually model out, whether it's whether early, whether you're presser, or sustained run style, all of that you can run and look to see each horse, how their run styles are. You can look at it from a pace standpoint. If you project this horse to get to the lead on first call, how is that horse done? But more importantly, if you have a horse that's like that, has the jockey proven to actually execute that, right? I felt like that was a really good angle to look at Saratoga. Also out in California, kind of how I found Juan Hernandez way back at Golden Gate. I ran some of those angles, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, you know what? He's very, very reliable on the right horse to understand the pace and to get that horse in the best position and getting that horse to move forward. And it carried over to Santa Anita, predominantly kind of a no-name jockey who kind of took everyone, not everyone, but I was excited when he made that move to Southern California. And now look where he is. I mean, he's basically first call for Baffert at this point, out on the West Coast. It gives you how you can use some of that data to build into it.
When we did a preview for attheraces.com for one of those meets early on, and because of that info you'd provided me, I got to feel smart for a minute mentioning him as a jockey to watch before that meet, based on this exact kind of data that you're able to find using Raceland. So it's definitely very powerful, not just in terms of looking at the races today, but coming up with these sort of ways of looking at the world. And you mentioned about the famous book, Tom Brohammer's Modern Pace Handicapping. As we have our first child interruption, we had a dog interruption before. Parents, say hi to everybody. We're just doing a show. Can I come up and see you in about 15 minutes?
No, I just need to tell you some Duolingo stuff.
All right, really quick.
Okay.
My daughter, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Stop that. Okay, the first thing is that they put Duolingo Math on normal Duolingo. Right?
Oh, that's great.
As well as releasing it with Duolingo Music.
Oh, that's so cool.
To also help you learn music.
Duolingo are not a sponsor of this program, folks. It is Racelands, but we're getting some good info here.
Duolingo. Anyway.
Probably the best analysis you'll get on the airwaves here today. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Will you show me when I come up?
One other thing.
Okay.
You know how I have to do the quest every day, but I can skip one?
Yes.
I think I might have to skip one today, because this one it says I have to do 4 legendary challenges. That would mean...
That sounds like a lot of legendary... That's like doing the pick 6 at 4 different racetracks.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
We've probably all done it at some point.
I would have had to do... Well, 4, 8, 6, 7, 8,
We're going to teach you about dead air soon, parents.
I'd have to do 6.
That's the next broadcasting lesson.
I have to do 16 different lessons.
That's a lot. But, all right, well, we'll talk about it. We'll look. If we can look ahead to what's coming up, we'll make it make sense for sure.
Yeah, okay.
All right, but I'll see you in a little bit. That is good news. It is, we were talking about econometrics and stuff. There's something to the idea also of creating these, like, I wish there was a horse racing equivalent of the kind of like learning challenges, learning games to get people up and running. I guess contests are kind of like that as a way to introduce things. Yeah, see, she's already into it. Parents' new method of handicapping this summer was to go through pedigrees and find out who was most closely related to Secretariat. We found a winner or two with that.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember the specific horse, but anyway. All right, you go do your thing. We got to get back to business here. So, Modern Pace Handicapping by Tom Brohammer, the book that Matt was referring to. Good luck finding it because it's out of print, but there's a lot of there's a lot of good info in there, and a lot of the type of information that is discussed in there is baked right in to the program here. So that's an area for further exploration as well. With, I think Tom is still around. With his blessing, we could get Matt Vagvolgyi's postmodern pace handicapping at some point. Long story short, you like accretive in the Vosberg.
Yeah, again, based on pace, based on how this track profile has been. Again, also looking at IRAD is successful on these types of horses. So to go into that idea of, can we get, does IRAD put this horse in the right spot? I mean, he's proven it to do so, not only in the short term, 33% winners, but also if you look at over 5 years, so we're looking at a 500 race subset, 30% when his horses hit the lead at first call with sprints at Aqueduct. So again, that's how you drill down a little bit. We're going like kind of on the very, very top, the very, very kind of basic idea, but just to give you some process works, some of this data to drill in a bit deeper and how to arrive at a conclusion like this. So just kind of give you an idea of how I ended up here, track profile, but also looking at connections and what to expect out of the gate.
The IRAD stat you mentioned, you can figure out what you must establish a baseline, right, to know what the average rider's percentage would be, or what is the average wire to wire? Is it something like 18 or 20? I'm making that up, but I assume you have some sort of control for it. I think 30 is a significant improvement over whatever the control must be. And I assume that's the type of logic you use when trying to find these things. What would it be on average? What does this person do that's better or worse than that average?
Exactly. That's why you can start very broad and basic. Sometimes I won't even go by track. I'll just look at it. Give me dirt sprints, first on the lead at first call, and then you start to whittle down, because what you can do in Racelands, once you run that angle, you can actually, there's a details tab. When you click on that, it gives you all hyperlinks to every single race that meets the criteria. So you can select those and see from the sheet exactly what happened. And just on the view there, you get an idea of the horse, off odds, jockey, trainer, pedigree, dam sire. You get all the information right on one page. So it just helps you start to formulate some more. Now, again, you're at risk of overfitting, which is something we'll talk about. But again, it just gives you an idea of, can I find something else in a very broad statistic that many might know that's pretty simple and straightforward? Can I drill down on something a bit different that might not be as obvious? So that's kind of the idea, how you walk through that sense and you drill down to something more smaller.
Let's proceed to the ACAC, the second of the races we're going to talk about. But while we do that, I do think we should at least touch on that key concept of overfitting, which is essentially, model. One way I would describe it, and you correct me on this, but modeling gone wrong, where you put in so many variables that your sample size gets so small that you are only giving an overview of what's happened in the past, and there's very little chance of that angle going forward. Is that a good description?
Yeah, it's basically, you take a subset of data. You can do this with anything, right? And you start to look at like the exact moments or exact connections that have worked for a few times. And then you just take that information and put that together and say, oh my God, this hits at like 70%, 120% ROI. But it's happened so infrequently, and just the variables that have gone into producing those types of you've used. Again, you're creating a situation where you're putting yourself in such a tight box and giving you a false sense of security that this is the play or this is the idea I want to go with. You've got to take in more of the environment around it. So I would say you probably put it more succinctly than I did, but it's just, again, when you try to find the right things that have happened for just a few times, again, you're getting a false sense of hope when you're looking at it that way.
Another part of it is, and I liked what you said about looking at the overall environment. I once spoke to a modeler who was new in his horse racing journey, and he was looking at the data, and he came up with when these horses that lose ground in the stretch, they have a horrible ROI. And I'm like, well, because Sometimes it can become like a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. It's the result. Horses that don't win have a 0% strike rate. You have to use your. You do have to sometimes step back a little bit. You can get a two in the weeds with some of this stuff, but obviously there's tremendous value to be found. Let's take a look at the ACAC. We get a mile at Churchill Downs. And this is not a Downs. This is not a Downs after dark. We're going to be at 5 p.m. just before 5 p.m. Eastern for this one. I'll be on with the Brits covering it, and very curious to see what drew you to this race and get your idea of a potential selection.
I'm going to look at a horse that I probably usually wouldn't give a look to. Now again, Zoe's tough in this race. I do feel I'm in agreement with Time Form in terms of the pace projection of being alone on the lead there. Could be tough to run down late. Again, this is one of those watch the races ahead of time, races during the day, see how that track is playing. It might change the opinion a bit. But I just want to use this as an example of, again, of how to really look at a horse in terms of its profile. Now, I do think early pace, I do think Zozos will shake free. I do think there's going to be pressure in the middle of this race. So that's where I kind of come to this. Give me good late pace, and we've got by far and away the top late pace in the race. Comes here from Obezos. But I want to look at something that's very simple that I take a lot of credence in. We've talked a lot about, Pete, and this gets very simple on Racelens to look at it very quickly, is the recency of the jockey. Now, you might be kind of rolling your eyes saying, well, that's obvious information. Yes and no, right? You can see a broader record, but I like to look at the recency. To me, it's an athlete thing, right? When you're doing well, it's confidence, right? And I just take this from my career playing hockey. When I'm on and I just feel like I can't do anything wrong, I'm not thinking, right? I'm just playing, and there's instincts take over, and I just do my thing. On the reverse side, when you're not, I'm sorry,
in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. So you got the blinders on, you've got nothing else is coming through your brain. Now, the opposite to that is when you're playing bad, you're thinking about everything. Right? I mean, literally, you're thinking about everything. Every move you make while you're making the play live, I've got to make a safe play. I'm not going to try to beat this guy when I make the simple pass, whatever the case is, right? I think this gets multiplied by like 100 in horse racing, right? Just think about when that hole opens up on the rail, when you're riding well, you're just taking it, right? Or if you got to switch to the outside and just drive home, you're going to take it. When you're not riding well, you start to think, well, I can't get shut off again, right? I'm going to wait for my spot to take. And again, it just doesn't work. So this gives a really good idea, and it draws me to, on a connection standpoint, jockey trainer standpoint, lights out. I really do feel recency with Tyler has been very good. Something I haven't said in a long time, but I think I knocked him early on in Saratoga, and that's come back to bite me immediately, which usually happens. So I'm used to it by now. But I also, again, on a trainer standpoint, I mean, looking at the layoff, you look at, shows all different types of statistics here, very basic, right? Tyler's last 30 days gives his starts, his hit percentage, his ROI, right? Last 10 days, is there sort of a progression of confidence in, right? So again, I give that some credence. I know it may not be the number one, it's not the number one thing I'm looking for, but on an athlete standpoint, I do like to see a jockey with confidence versus the other end of it, where you can look at it from a jockey that's struggling. Again, if you have a unique pace scenario or you project a race to be a certain way, you may want to take that into consideration. And also on a stakes record here too, again, just breaking down a lot of information that's very simply straightforward put on there. You can get a really good idea of a horse just by taking a glance at this page. And again, that's why I just wanted to show you the landing page on the PPs of a lot of information that you can take in.
That's great. I look at that stuff, but in other platforms, it's 3 clicks away. To be able to just have that staring you in the face, that's got to help you in terms of just speeding up the entire process. Do you think Obezos is going to be able to have? Will there be enough going on in the middle of this race to set up his late run?
I do. I also think I think we'll be a little bit closer. So I do think we'll lay a little bit closer. The middle does heat up enough to keep this horse in touch, right? Because that's the other thing you got to look at too. So you look at like pace ratings right here, right? when you're that far off of the pace, or projected to be that far off the pace, this late pace figure almost doesn't mean anything, right? Like what I do on my own pace analysis is a discounted value, right? Based on how far I project the horse to be from the lead. Again, I just feel this horse will be a little bit closer, and I think we'll have a shot to run it down late. And that's a massive late pace figure on the Racelens platform here. Just so not familiar with huge number there. So again, I think at a relatively decent price, I think a horse that I think will be closer than expected, and I think will have a lot of late pace coming into the lane late. So again, confident jockey, well spotted by the trainer, and I think just a pace setup that I think might help this horse late.
Let's head out west to the Awesome again, the third of the 3 races we're going to talk about. We were talking about only going 30 today, but we give Perrin 5 minutes, so I think we can run a little bit longer. Let's head out to the Awesome again and see what we're looking at in this one. More winning you're in action for the Breeders' Cup, and certainly a race that we're going to want to get our heads around before we start talking about the Breeders' Cup Classic and all the work that's going to be happening starting next week. What leapt out to you in this field of 9?
So just bringing up this, one thing I'll add to is why I look at this every day as kind of the first landing spot is every angle or everything that you put into play is automatically populated. So once and it automatically continues to run that angle and populate the ROI, the win percentage. Every time it hits, it's going to, there's nothing else for you to do. That to me probably was the reason why I stuck with it. When I first started to get used to it, I realized how many things I can put into play and never have to run again. It's just there, right? And again, you can set the parameters of like ROI or win percentage. So you're seeing on the screen numbers that have a white background are somewhere in the middle, right? Not exceptionally great, but not terrible, right? If it's red, you're looking at a pretty significant negative angle if it's red. Now, if it's green, it's telling you that one of these 10 angles I have for National Treasure, right, is going to show something nice I want to take a look at, right? And that's one of the angles to look at here are these. I did shipping in from Naira, so whether it's Aqueduct, Saratoga, Belmont, shipping in to Santa Anita, what does that look like, right? And breaking that down by turf and dirt, and it's a significant angle, right? So you look at it just for this year, hitting 80% with an 80% ROIs, right? So again, something very broad, but hey, let me draw into this horse and take a look to see if there's something there. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a way that you can easily just hover over and see like what are some angles that I'm looking at that I like, or maybe something I want to take a look at a little bit deeper. It's as simple as just hovering your mouse over the horse.
Some of those angles are pre-populated, and then others you can create along the way. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah. So when you sign up for Racelens, there's going to be a pre-populate already some basic set in there. Here's what I would say why that's good is I say add them all in, right? Just click activate for all of them and see kind of where they fit. But for me is, I'm so different from my wife who like you buy like a couch from IKEA. She will go line by line with the directions. I'm the type of guy that dumps everything out on the floor and then tries to like figure everything out, right? And start to see how the puzzle works. To me, when you have these pre-populated angles, when you bring them up, it shows you line by line where to find all the criteria. So, okay, this arrived at this particular angle. Now, what if I want to change this? I know where to find the differences to change that particular query. So little by little, you start to put the puzzle together on your own, and it helps you learn how to then build your own angles. And when ideas come, you know exactly where to find it. That's the stuff that I will certainly walk through. And again, if you have questions on this stuff, reach out. People reach out to me all the time on Twitter of saying, hey, I'm trying to run this angle. Like I can't really figure it out. Or here's the idea I'm looking at. And I'll send a screenshot of how and sometimes I get ideas, to be truly honest with you. And that's what I'm looking forward to on the kind of crowdsourcing this is getting some really good ideas to research. But yeah, so again, it just allows you to kind of dissect and look at those with those samples to kind of build your own.
Yeah, terrific description there. Now, so when you go and look at this race, did that standout stat for National Treasure, did it bear out when you were looking at the race? You think this could be a play in here?
Yeah, I think this is going to be again a little bit of taking a little bit of a shot, but there's, we mentioned Juan Hernandez before. I mean, again, that simple basic landing page here of looking at jockey and trainer. Again, when they hook up, I mean, they're hitting at 36%. Juan's been riding lights out, continues to ride lights out in Southern California. When these guys team up, I also think when you look at it from a jockey change standpoint as well, I think that Juan's going to put this horse in the right spot. I think it will be just off that pace, and I have confidence in do that, right? So that kind of leaves me all right. So I like that point already. So I'm going to look at this horse a little bit deeper. And I just think, you look at the last couple of runs, again, I think, short rest off the Preakness into the Belmont, and then getting an off track at Saratoga. I think this horse could get the right setup. I think it slid off the pace. I think has enough close in this race to get it done. Now, I do worry about another loan taking control of this. That is something I've seen and has held up at Santa Anita. But again, hopefully we can get a little bit of pace pressure here. I believe it's Standout Andy. I project to have a pretty clear lead. I believe that's the same as time form.
Yep.
But again, slow down Andy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was curious what, Defunded's best races come on the lead. Is there a chance, he doesn't look fast enough anymore, but the Glory Days run from him or Team Tactics, perhaps, you could see maybe him going and National Treasure just stalking too. That's something that popped into my head.
Yeah, it could be, because that's what kind of plays into the change of that pace dynamic of trying to hustle that horse out, because that's where we've had success, right? You see that of like, listen, get to the lead at all costs, right? Let's just try to get to the lead. If we get to the lead and we have to work for it, so what? It gives us our best chance to do that. So I'm kind of handicapping it in a way for that to happen. I don't know if the speed is still there to actually make that happen. And I think that's could happen. And it puts, to me, I think it puts Juan in a perfect spot, sitting right off the pace. And I think National Treasure is a big shot in this race. And again, I think you're going to get a decent price on this horse. Again, if there's no pace in this race, you're probably ripping up tickets when they hang the half mile. But I think with a little pace pressure, this horse is going to be sitting right there and able to pounce. So again, I love the jockey change to Juan. When these guys hook up, when Baffert and hook up, I have confidence the horse will be in the right spot. And I think this horse got some late kick to stalk the pace and get it done.
I'm guessing there's some positive buzz on Defunded in terms of workouts. Looking at the tab, I mean, Baffert's always worked fast, but California, the morning line is generally pretty much in tune with workouts. And for Defunded to be listed at 2-1 tells me the horse must be doing well, and makes me think that they will be out there on the lead, and National Treasure could just be in that perfect stalking position, because Maldonado can be aggressive down at the inside. It just feels like they're going to have to be, and I think the chances of National Treasure out finishing that one are not bad at all, given the way that with how Defunded's run recently. If he's going to expend that much energy late, will he be able to hold off National Treasure late on? I'm not sure. I think it's an interesting idea if you can get something on the order of 4-1. Any other thoughts on this one, Matt?
No, again, I just think just doing a kind of a basic idea of how to take in a lot of this data and start to formulate opinions, and then start to look at the handicapping side of it, kind of give everybody what we'll look. Or kind of diving into a lot of these ideas and start to research and look to see how to use this and how to make it beneficial for your day-to-day handicapping. Again, not to replace your handicapping, it's how do we use data in the smartest way possible to complement what you're doing. And I can say this from experience. I went from a very average player to really raising my game when I started to use data in my favor and started to add that into the process.
Terrific stuff. Let's look at our promo offer one more time for folks who may be joining us halfway or just need a reminder. Craig, if you want to switch that, if we can remove the screen share and put that up one more time. Maybe I can do it from where I'm sitting. So there you go. You're looking at it. We're talking about saving $300 on the annual subscription, and you get that free 1-year subscription to In the Money Plus, a $200 value that people, I mean, I got to say, people sign up and we do have some who just pop in and pop out for the big events, but the people come back because they love the coverage around the big events. And then there's a ton of stuff between then as well, whether it's our diaries for boutique meets, little digests of the picks from all the plays. There's a lot of value on the In the Money Plus side. So we encourage you to check that out. If you have any questions, feel free, reach out to me. Contact page over at inthemoneypodcast.com. Hit Matt up on Twitter at blinkerson22 with any of your questions as well. Very excited to be doing another show very similar to this one next week, and then we'll get that evergreen situation going as well. So we're going to leave it there. We're going to thank our friends at Race Lens, especially Rhonda Norby. Always a pleasure to work with, but the whole team over there. Ella Starr does a great job. Love hearing Christina Blacker talk about the project. Scott Coles, that crew is actually going to be back along with Mr. Ice Cold himself, Dave Weaver. They're going to be doing a special show as well next week on these on the Equibase channels. We'll be promoting that as well over on the In the Money side. You're going to want to check that out. Check out the show that we do. Maybe we'll do same bat time, same bat channel. Matt, if you're game to look at the 5 o'clock on Thursday, we'll do that production meeting outside the show, though, for our friends at In the Money and Equibase and Race Lens and Mac Vagvolgyi. I'm Pete Fornatal. May you win all your photos.